Welcome back. You're watching KTN News Desk. Many thanks for staying with us. We are into our second hour as we strive to update you with stories that are developing, breaking, and that we are following up on, making headlines across the country. Remember, I'm still with Joy Brendam Divo and Duncan Okach, both of them lawyers, as we put into context some of the big issues making headlines in the country at the moment. Now, the judges of the Supreme Court failed to attend President Uhuru Kenyatta's address to the joint sitting of Parliament on Tuesday, while legislators allied to the National Super Alliance had publicly stated that they would not attend the function, a routine address made at the start of every Parliament. It was the absence of the judges of the highest court that stood out as the calendar of the 12th House was set rolling. All indications were that the judges of the court, who have suffered attacks from the president and his Jubilee team since the historical annulling of the presidential election, were to attend the traditional event. Committee rooms 7 and 9 are normally reserved for the two National Assembly watchdog committees. The Public Investments Committee and the Public Accounts Committee had been reserved and clearly marked as meant to hold the highest judicial offices before they are ushered into the Speaker's gallery together with other dignitaries. This has led to lots of speculation on why the judges were a no-show at the 12th sitting of Parliament. Now, we had already begun this discussion here with my panelist. Joy said that it would have been prudent for them to just say that we are busy, held up somewhere, trying to just finalize on the 21-day on the judgment, full judgment of the election that they overturned. And you also mentioned that it would have not given room for speculation as we are seeing currently. But Duncan, what do you think?
My take is there is room for speculation, as my learned colleague has indicated, and we can speculate either way. However, based on the reasoning that we will have, some speculations may actually be justified. And one of it is what she has said, that they obviously are busy writing the ruling. As you know, they have, I think, around 7 days to come up with that decision. And remember, that decision is a very important decision because it will, first of all, give confidence in terms of the reasoning behind the decision that they gave. But more importantly, it will also guide IEBC and other institutions and other entities and all stakeholders involved in the elections in terms of where we went wrong and what we need to do so that we avoid going back to the same position come next month when we are doing our elections. But again, it also points to an issue about respect. As you have seen, and it is actually coming at a very opportune time, the president has just spoken to, I think, Gusii leaders or party members, and you've just heard his assertions. He still says that he has an issue with that mzee. He has an issue with that decision. He says he's very bitter. And if you look at it, this is the head of an arm of government. There is an issue of mutual respect. And as such, the president, being the head of the executive, ought to respect the other heads of these two arms of government. Equally, they have a duty to respect him as the president and the head of the executive. However, even if, and that's common parlance, even if you do not respect or you don't like the occupier of that office,
you respect the office.
That occupier has gone to that office by virtue of his credentials and by virtue of the Constitution. Respect that particular office. Therefore, if none other than the president himself can utter those words, it actually means that any other person will, the same contempt will be given to any other judge of this particular course. And if they attended, chances are high that will still may actually have taken place, or it may have been their fear. So it comes back to the issue of mutual respect, such that you cannot come on one hand to say that old mzee, then on the other hand, you are complaining that they do not respect me when I'm opening Parliament.
Joy, the lack of decorum while addressing, or respect, as he says, while addressing the Supreme Court judges, and especially Justice David Maraga, we've seen the same thing with President Uhuru Kenyatta just a few moments ago. Was the whole Jubilee team expecting too much for them to come in, yet they have been disrespecting them, so to speak, and calling them all sorts of names in the public rallies? Do you think they're expecting too much?
No, it's a little bit of an overkill. And I must categorically state, if you're going to be on in public office, you do expect criticism from time to time. Duncan knows as well as I do, contempt of court is actually a technical term. It is not saying I don't like you. It is not saying I don't agree with you. That is not contempt. That is just the president being a human being. And I like what he said. If I am displeased, can I not say so? Because that tells you he's not talking as head of state. He's not talking to the institution of the judiciary. He's just one man venting. And you can understand where he's coming from. I mean, you've just run a grueling campaign. You have spent a lot of money. And the court comes and you're railroaded to court. And then the court says, by the way, there's no problem with you. You take a seat. After everything we've seen, there's nothing wrong with you. But these two guys have a problem. So he's suffering the consequences of somebody else's negligence. And you can see where his displeasure comes from. And we've seen this not just from the president, even from other politicians, even common wananchi. You go to court and something goes wrong, and how you talk about the magistrate or the judicial officer handling your matter is expressing what you are feeling as a human being, because our court system, unfortunately, is adversarial. One person wins, one person loses. And the one who loses invariably is going to use unpalatable terms to describe whoever it is they think is the author of their misfortune.
One would argue.
However,
yes.
Now translating this to what you talk about institutions. Now, yesterday, if you are a casual observer, you would understand that this is unprecedented. It's never happened before. Why would the judges not turn up? It cannot be simply because the president said something that they did not like. Even for a mature adult, is that the knee-jerk reaction? That's what I was saying. The courts have opened themselves to look like a political, theirs was a political statement, rather than in what I think is honestly the case. It was just an inconvenience. Somebody said that they were not properly invited or something happened. And in my opinion, that should be made clear. The judiciary could actually use the services of a spokesman who can come out and clarify some of these things. Yeah. Because right now, if you saw NASA leaders were not, NASA MPs were not in the house, then you see the judges are not in the house. If I'm a pedestrian on the street, what am I supposed to think? That they did not turn up as a protest?
Duncan, the president is human. That is the argument that Joy is giving us.
Okay, so the president is human, but the respect that you give to that will be given to that particular city depends on the occupier. And that is what he must realize. And not only the president, any person occupying a constitutional office. And Akisa, it will really be very weird and of concern when my fellow learned colleague actually states that it is very proper to criticize, it is very proper to attack the judiciary or the person of a judge. I can tell you for a fact that that is further from the truth. We all have a right to criticize a judgment. We all have a right to give our reservations with that particular judgment, but you do not cross that line and now attack the judge in his individual capacity. What the president is doing by calling this person, an old man, that Mzee, who has a constitutional title. He's the head of an arm of government. The moment you refer to him like that, it is already contemptuous in reference to this person. But more importantly, the president has actually gone further and even attacked a judge who attended the swearing in of Laboso and attacked his stomach and things like those. That is not warranted. That is not attack. That person did not sit at the Supreme Court. All he did is his constitutional mandate to go and swear in a governor.
Joy is making faces, yes.
She can make faces as much as she can, but the reality remains, and that is you do not cross that path and attack the individual person. And that is why we have rights to appeal. And even if this is the Supreme Court and you do not agree with it, the fact that you swore fidelity to the Constitution, and when you swore fidelity to the Constitution, you know this is the highest court in the land. When it decides, you have to abide by it. And if you have an issue with it, you can criticize, but don't go overboard.
But that's what I said. Contempt is a technical term. Has the president refused to comply with the court order? No, he has not. Has he refused to subject himself to the processes? No, he has not. To call somebody Amze, since when was that an insult? It's a term actually of deference when you're calling somebody an old man. And he's Maraga a youngster. I mean, that's why I'm looking perturbed. Attacking a stomach, I mean, that's melodrama as far as I'm concerned. We are blowing this entire thing out of proportion. That's why I'm saying the judiciary needs to come out and say, you know what actually happened is we had a big lunch and we took a nap. They just need to say what happened. In my opinion, what we are doing is overkill, because Duncan and I both know we cannot even cast a stone at what the president is doing, because we have been, even in our court corridors, when you've come out and a ruling has been made and you're thinking, has this magistrate actually gone to law school? We rant about unfavorable judgments all the time. It's one of those things that it does not mean you do not respect the court. It does not mean that you will not abide by the decision. That's what I'm saying.
You go to a national television and say that judge has,
if
not gone to law school.
If somebody followed you with a camera and covered everything you said about Judges Duncan, you may not be able to practice before this court.
And that's what I'm saying. Say that.
But
if I'm the president, I
there is no
go.
politician who can stand before us and say that they have never said something about the courts that was regrettable.
Does it make
it does not make it right. But what it does not do, it does not make it different from what others are doing. That's all I'm saying. So did the judges not go because they were afraid they were going to be attacked? I don't think so. That's what I've said. And I've said it here before. It's not an attack on the court. There were insults. That much I'll not deny. But does that amount, is Maraga quaking in his boots because he was insulted? I've been a judicial officer before. People have told me things about my judgments that made them think I had less than stellar performance upstairs. But it's one of those things you're like, you know what? That's the ruling. Deal with it. Go to a higher court if you want. It happens. If he was in contempt, like he had refused, he had gone ahead, planned a swearing-in ceremony, no, he would be in contempt of the court. But he has subjected himself to the jurisdiction of the court. So what I see happened yesterday, in my opinion, is a very big miscommunication. It's a lot of hula-baloo. And the judiciary now should come out and explain, because this has never happened before. So why did they not
Why didn't they show up? Is it in any way, Duncan, is it in any way consequential, them not showing up for this meeting?
It's not consequential, it's ceremonial.
Do they need to explain to anyone why they didn't show up?
They actually do not need to explain, but in terms of protocol, if they were invited, I agree with her that it will be important to say this is why we have not appeared. However, it is not a must that they do so, because it's common knowledge that they are very busy at this particular point in time. And that's why we may speculate left, right, and center, but the most important thing is we know that what the mandate that they have now, and the most important one is giving us that particular decision and not going to attend ceremonies and celebrate when there is no need to celebrate at that particular point. Them, they are still busy.
Was there a celebration yesterday? It was just the opening of Parliament. But one of the things that
there was a luncheon after, so probably that's what.
But one of the things I must agree also with Duncan, it's one of those roles where, yes, it is a ceremonial event, but because of where we are as a country, even such a little explanation would have been. We're in a progressive constitutional dispensation.
Yes.
People don't have to do ceremony for the sake of ceremony.
I want us to take a look at an update from Mombasa, but quickly, do you think this now sets the stage for a quote-unquote battle royale between the two executive, the two arms of government, the executive and the judiciary?
I do not think so. It's one of those things, there was no role that they were playing. There was no lacuna that was created. All that it was a poor show.
Okay.
But moving on from there, even where the parts of the judiciary and the executive cross is if somebody goes into the space of the other. So there's nothing that would cut
Do you think it sets the stage for anything bigger?
The words of the president even today already shows that there is already a war. He's actually placed himself as a judge and said this is what the court should have done. That is, according to him, the court will have done differently. But look at also the words of his lieutenant and him. He has said, after the elections, we are going to deal with you. That is already a battle set. Therefore, it's not about this particular action from the judiciary setting the pace. The pace was already set by the president and his lieutenants, and we are just here observing and waiting to see what happens. But that is actually what people are saying, because the moment a judge makes a decision, you cannot use your authority as one arm of government to threaten them. In actual sense, you'll be saying that any matter that goes to court, you must consult us before you make that particular decision. Otherwise, we'll deal with you after that. Then where is the independence of that particular institution?
Right.
Where is the respect when you want to say this is the judiciary coming here and this is the executive and this is the legislature? There is no respect. And without that respect, our democracy fails on its own feet and will not have a country without the judiciary.
Let's